Bonjour mesdames et messieurs, c'est pour moi un grand plaisir de m'adresser à vous cet après-midi pour vous souhaiter très cordialement la bienvenue à ce webinaire, La Révolution française et la suite, un aperçu des courants politiques, organisé par le département de français, Université de Madurai Camarage, Madurai, avec la collaboration de MKU French Alumni. Je voudrais tout d'abord exprimer mes chaleureux mots de bienvenue à notre invité d'honneur, M. Alexis KITTERY, retraité architecte des solutions à Orange Telecom Paris, qui prendra la parole aujourd'hui. Je souhaite aussi le remercier d'avoir accepté notre invitation de diriger ce webinaire. Je voudrais souhaiter une bienvenue spéciale à nos coordinateurs de MKU French Alumni, Dr. Marie-Pierre Augustine, professeur retraité, et Dr. R. Souda, professeur retraité, département de français, Université de Madurai Camarage, Madurai. J'aimerais souhaiter une chaleureuse bienvenue à MKU French Alumni. J'accueille chaleureusement les collègues de travail, Dr. I. Rahul, Madame Sharmila et Mademoiselle Honorine Lourdes-Méry, département de français, Université de Madurai Camarage, Madurai. Je suis content d'accueillir les étudiants de Masters. J'ai un grand plaisir d'accueillir tous les enseignants, chercheurs et étudiants pour ce webinaire. Chers participants de ce webinaire, nous, le département de français, sommes ravis de vous accueillir tous ici pour assister à ce webinaire. Bienvenue à tous et à toutes.
Merci, Dr. Ranjit Kumar. Bonjour tout le monde. Bonjour, Monsieur Pierre. Bonjour, Monsieur Alexis. Bonjour, Québec. Bonjour, Jacob. Et mes chers étudiants, chers collègues, chers amis. Je suis ici présenter notre intervenant, Monsieur Alexis KITTERY. Amis, collègues, anciens étudiants du département de français, Université de Madurai Camarage, well-wisher de notre département, notre French Connect, qui nous tient au courant de tout ce qui passe en France, le pays que l'on aime. Membre actif de notre association MKU French Alumni, je suis fière de vous présenter M. Alexis. M. Alexis KITTERY a fait ses études à Pondichéry, à Chennai, à Madurai et à Paris. Il a fait son MA French chez nous en 79. Il a fait sa maîtrise en anglais en 1969-80 à l'Université de Sorbonne, Paris 4. Et il vit à Paris depuis 1979. Il a travaillé 31 ans en Orange France Telecom, dont 10 ans dans le domaine réseau mobile, 21 ans en système d'information. Il a eu des formations diverses en technologie, pour nommer quelques-unes: réseau mobile 4G, Evolved Packet Core, architecture, protocole et services, la technologie IP pour mobile, développer son aisance dans la vie professionnelle, manager au quotidien les clés de la réussite dans le management de projet, analyste, programmeur, gestion. Il est retraité comme architecte des solutions son de réseau cœur dans la direction des réseaux mobiles dans la société France Télécom. Il y avait occupé de différents postes: programmeur, préparateur de travaux, support technique, informatique et réseau à la direction régionale de chargerie, expert support technique à distance, responsable technique du support client, responsable support, responsable déploiement son core network. Et il est retraité depuis 2022, donc il y a 3 ans. Mais une vie de retraite pour lui est une vie bien active. Même avant son retraite, il a trouvé ce qu'il fallait pour se tenir actif. De février 2019 à décembre 2021 dans le cadre du programme Mécénat de compétences d'Orange Télécom France, en mission comme bénévole pour l'association Valentin Abi. Donc, il a travaillé comme bénévole dans cette association en tant que tour opérateur et guide pour personnes malvoyantes. Et depuis janvier 2022, à la retraite, il consacre son temps à l'association Malata Avi pour les personnes déficientes visuelles. Et côté culture, il est bien actif. Il est secrétaire à 2 associations en France, 2 associations culturelles, groupe de réflexion franco-indien et association culturelle Trimini. Et aujourd'hui, c'est sa journée spéciale, c'est son anniversaire et on est content d'avoir sa présence avec nous. Donc, au nom du département, au nom des participants de ce webinaire, je vous souhaite un joyeux anniversaire. À vous la parole.
Merci beaucoup, Souda, Madame Souda. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Ranjit. Merci beaucoup, Madame Souda. It's a very great pleasure for me today. That's something special for me today, that you have given me the opportunity to present this webinar. Je suis très content d'être là aujourd'hui pour présenter ce webinar parce que c'est une chance que vous m'aviez offert ce jour-là, le jour de mon anniversaire. Je suis très respectueusement, je vous remercie pour avoir donné cette chance de présenter aujourd'hui ce webinaire. Et merci, Monsieur Ranjit, et non seulement Monsieur Ranjit, mais également vos collègues, toute la faculté que vous travaillez et que vous essayez de maintenir l'éducation à Madurai et à un très haut niveau. Parce que maintenant, Madurai Cambridge University has received the excellence in education. That's what I heard about. And you are one of the active members for that. So I thank you, Mr. Ranjit, for taking, it's a long way that we are coming from Madame Sister and later Madame Rajeshwari and Pierre Augustin, Mr. Pierre Augustin, and Madame Sudha. And now you are the head of the department and you are giving very good opportunity for everyone to participate in a way or other. And Mr. Jager, you are an active member you are an active, not only the active member and the active engineer to make our website and WhatsApp group, alumni WhatsApp group to survive, and it's continuing, and you have created a very book, storage, or it's a bibliothèque of the Telegram app that we have more than 6,000 books have been stored in that Telegram app. So all these things that you have done and you are doing it, and also giving chance for alumni like me to express and to share some ideas with you all. Thank you very much. Thank you. And even for those who have come, my friends, and there are so many other friends, my old colleagues who joined this group, joined this webinar, and thank you everyone. And so if you give with your permission, I think that I can go with my presentation on Révolution et la suite. And Mr. Jager, I don't know, I have to go for the participant or partager, sorry.
Yeah, you can. Yes, Mr.
I can. Okay, sure. How to hide this? Because there are too many screens, sorry. Okay, I think now I'm... Voilà, j'aimerais bien présenter ce webinaire et partager avec vous quelques idées sur la Révolution française et la Suisse et un aperçu des courants politiques. Voilà. Mais avant de commencer, j'aimerais bien être. I want to just put a disclaimer. Je ne suis pas un historien, je ne suis pas un expert. Je suis là pour partager quelques informations que j'ai lues et approfondies parfois, juste pour avoir un peu plus d'explications que je puisse partager avec vous, avec mes amis. Je considère que ce sont des informations qui peuvent être utiles parce que ce n'est pas uniquement parce que quand je parle ici, quand on va parler un peu plus de politique, donc moi j'ai essayé d'être aussi objectif, de ne pas prendre parti pour l'un ou l'autre parti, comment, idéologie ou autre. Donc j'essaierai d'être aussi net et aussi objectif possible. D'accord? Donc si vous avez des questions, n'hésitez pas, on prendra du temps pour discuter là-dessus et par les questions and answers, questions-réponses, après cette présentation. Alors, tout simplement, comme je vous ai dit, c'est une tout
Est-ce que vous entendez bien? Vous entendez?
Est-ce que les participants, est-ce qu'ils
Oui,
ont...
les participants.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. This is just an attempt. C'est pourquoi moi je dis c'est une tentative. It's not just I want to give a public speech or anything. It's just an attempt, you know, to give you some interest. C'est pourquoi je dis bien clairement, c'est une tentative de susciter l'intérêt et la réflexion sur des aspects fondamentaux. Parce que pour nous les citoyens, parce qu'il faut essayer de comprendre ou au moins être au courant de tout ce qui se passe autour de nous, parce que la politique, c'est quelque chose qui est important pour nous tous, pour tous nous les citoyens. You have to understand, pour comprendre les différents courants politiques, c'est quelque chose d'important. Bien sûr, quand on est étudiant, quand on est encore dans la faculté, peut-être, il y aura beaucoup plus de moyens, on aura déjà une maturité suffisante pour comprendre qu'est-ce qui se passe autour de nous, est-ce que les courants, et également comprendre les différents courants politiques pour décider avec d'une façon plus libre et plus comment avec tout c'est being aware is more important. That's why I wanted to give you some information. Of course you may know all these things, but I just want to give quick refreshing these ideas. So this webinar is just pour comprendre les différents courants politiques, pour éveiller un esprit critique. Ça, c'est quelque chose de très important parce que on peut prendre tout ce qu'on dit pour des agents contents, parce qu'il faut avoir un esprit critique, parce que cet esprit critique, ça doit être développé bien avant qu'on rentre dans la vie active. Et les défis auxquels nos démocraties sont confrontées aujourd'hui. Ce sont des choses que je vais aborder. Donc, avant de rentrer dans le vif du sujet, je voudrais voir les différents courants politiques, l'influence de la Révolution française sur l'Europe et dans le monde, la démocratie, ses faiblesses et ses forces, la démocratie aujourd'hui. Donc, le premier point, ce que je vais aborder, les influences, comment la politique nous influence. Elle influence directement notre vie quotidienne. Second point, elle permet de défendre nos droits et nos intérêts. Elle façonne notre société et notre avenir. Elle est essentielle pour la démocratie. So, the politics is something very important that it's, I mean, you know, it's, we are facing it. I mean, it's something important that is important for our day-to-day life. In a very civilized society, in a very civilized democracy, I mean, The government, it is what it's, I mean, the government is supposed to give to us. It is loi et réglementation. It is not just starting from the very simple road regulations, and even that food safety and protection. I mean, work, giving enough sufficient work and preparation and the education. And we can say that also there is that service public. There is always, when there is a government, there should be some public services. Essentially, we can say that is education, health, transport, and security. What they call usually in French, that ce sont des postes régaliens d'un gouvernement, c'est-à-dire ce sont des sécurités nationales, sécurité de la frontière, sécurité interne, la santé, éducation. Les autres viennent après, parce que ce sont des postes régaliens que un gouvernement doit absolument assurer à ses citoyens. Then, taxes et impôts. In English, normally they say that it's taxes for everything. Just there is a small nuance in French when they say tax et impôts, duties, taxes and duties. Taxes is something that when you get a service, quand il y a une prestation de service spécifique à ce moment-là, for example, water, electricity, or anything, that can be considered, I mean, they call it a tax. But impôt, when it is coming to land, house, comment, impôt sur le revenu, impôt sur le bâtiment, sur la maison, sur tout ce que ce pays existe. Parce que c'est ces impôts-là qui vont rentrer dans le budget global de l'État. Ce budget global de l'État, c'est pour assurer la défense, assurer la sécurité des peuples, la sécurité de ses citoyens, et assurer l'éducation et la santé publique. Donc, il y a une différence entre les taxes et les impôts, je veux insister. Et l'impôt, ce n'est pas people. Usually people think that the government is taxing heavily, but the government, of course, the government has to be very careful when they tax. You know, too much of taxation may end up in an ugly way. That's what happened after the revolution. So impôt is something important, and normally the citizens they have to consider it's a contribution to the country, and it is not a taxation. Of course, that when the impôt remains in a reasonable manner and it's in a reasonable way, and taxing the right people, then we can consider it as a very good thing, and we have to cooperate because the country needs money, the governance needs money. Of course, I already told that economy and employment is one of the main things that the government has to ensure for its people. And then how it goes about through representation. Of course, we have to vote and we have to create a good governance, a good government, starting from mayor, for the panchayat, I don't know in India, but mayor, I mean, when you elect a mayor, and there are local bodies, as well as when you come to the central government, there is a upper house, lower house, justice. These are the representation, and we elect our these bodies through elections. So there is a collective voice. We know whom to send to these places, to these positions. So we think that they are going to influence our decisions. La politique offre un moyen pour les citoyens de se rassembler et exprimer collectivement leurs opinions et leurs préoccupations, ce qui peut influencer les décisions gouvernementales. Of course, if you send the right people, you may expect what's the decision for tomorrow, what will be the project they are going to give for the future. And of course, there is a protection de liberté. The protection de la liberté in a democracy, normally the majority, the party becomes majority, they are going to govern. But doesn't mean they have to impose all their ideas, but they have to give the liberty of expression for the minorities. Un système politique démocratique est essentiel pour garantir et protéger les libertés fondamentales telles que la liberté d'expression, liberté des réunions, liberté de droit et un procès équitable. There should be the governance, a good governance should protect everyone. This is how we want to shape our society. We choose our people, we choose our representatives, and then we try to shape up the governance, how the country should go. This is the way that we go about in a normal democratic country. So there are some values and priorities. Of course, when we choose our representatives, we know whom to choose because we want to give a push to a certain way of thinking, way of life, way of prayer. So we give this politique reflète nos valeurs et les priorités d'une société. And it is something important that participer à la politique permet d'influencer ces orientations. But without some people, some certain people, not all, they don't even vote, but they think that they have got the right to criticize the government. But without, so every citizen has to participate in the politics in a way or other, at least by voting, at least by choosing, at least to have very good amount of knowledge on politics and on the politicians, on the ideologies. There should be some justice sociale et égalité. La politique est un outil essentiel because it is something essential pour lutter contre l'inégalité et la discrimination de l'injustice sociale. When one type of government, one type of ideology, people with one type of ideology, when they come to power, they want to take the country to a different level and the way they want the country should be. Of course, we choose the majority. That is the rule of the democracy. When there is a majority comes to the power, il ne faut pas qu'ils oublient qu'ils représentent également les minorités qui font partie de cette population. Ça, c'est la justice sociale qui doit assurer cette équité et durabilité de l'environnement. Maintenant, we cannot forget about this sustainability of the environment. So it is becoming more and more important. We are more and more aware how pollution and so many other, some not foolish decisions, but decisions that has been taken on a period, it's not adaptable for the time being, for today's life. When you consider about that environmental disasters, so we have to be very careful about this environmental. We have to take care of the environment. Of course, it's something important to save our planet. And finally, the government should be a legitimate government, and the voting procedures must be respected. La participation des citoyens à la politique, notamment par la vote, confère une légitimité au gouvernement. This is that by voting, and the voting process must be correct so that the government gains a legitimacy. And the accountability of the dirigeant, by only being aware and then recording this, getting the accountability from the politicians, it gives a certain engagement citoyen. It is something very important that requesting, not demanding, we can say also demanding the accountability from the politician. C'est un engagement citoyen actif, permet de tenir les dirigeants responsables de leurs actions et de leurs décisions. And there should be open discussions. The next thing, there should be public information, and that information should be explained and debated, and then go for if there is a project And c'est ce qu'on appelle en français this projet de loi. Before it is getting enforced, there should be a projet de loi, and it has to be discussed by all the parties, and all the parties have got the right to express on this publicly as well as in the parliament. And after that, it has to be taken, and then the government has got the sole legitimacy to adopt that law after having discussed and taking the sufficient amendments before enforcing the project, enforcing and becoming a law. La politique n'est pas une active réservée aux politiciens. This is something important that I wanted to insist. Pour les citoyens, s'engager en politique et d'exercer leurs droits, de défendre leurs intérêts et de contribuer à façonner la société dans laquelle ils vivent. It is something important that we have to participate in a way or other to give the importance, so that, if you leave the politicians to lead their life without getting any, asking for any accountability, then it will end up in an ugly situation. So when you think of politics, these are the basics, how the politics should work. But when the politics is led by politicians, and politicians, they have got their own ideology. And when you say ideology, we can just, for ideology, for some people, it may be only just environment. Of course, environment will come as their major preoccupation, but the other things will come together with that. Of course, for there will be, people who want, of course, they will be asking for accountability. There will be more prone to justice. There should be more justice. There should be more social justice, and everyone has got their own priorities. People have got their own priorities, and of course, their representatives will have their own priorities and their principles. They'll be giving more, insistence on certain values. So there may be so many things that will come into account when you take into ideology. So I just wanted to go a little bit in all the ideologies, les courants politiques, c'est ça. Les courants politiques, there will be so many courants politiques when you come in a country, in a normal democratic country. It's always, I'm taking into account because it's a normal democratic country where democracy functions. So that is quite normal. There'll be many les courants politiques, many political parties with their own set of principles, ce sont des idées, des principes, which guides them to organize and exercise their power on the society, how to govern their society. They have got their own vision qui guide l'organisation et l'exercice du pouvoir dans une société. And il offre des visions différentes sur la manière dont une société devrait être gouvernée et sur le rôle d'État. Each party will have their own way. Even if you say imagine if there is a rightist party, it's got the majority and it's governing. Of course, the leftists or the other parties will have their own vision. They try to impose their vision to the majority, and it's up to the majority to see what is the best thing. Of course, whether it functions or not, this is how a normal democracy should function. So I want to go a little bit, it is very quick, I'll walk through this different courants politiques. Quels sont les différents courants politiques dans une société normale? There'll be liberals, les libéralisme. So it will be more access on their individual rights, civil rights. Democracy will be the major issue for them. And there'll be, of course, democracy, they won't forget, because without democracy, it won't function, their system. And the free market. Économie de marché, it is an open market. The government should not intervene too much on these sectors, and that must be too many private sectors rather than the state-owned sectors, state ownership. So they want the state should limit itself only on major things like defense, health, education, and other things should be left to the open market or a free private sectors. It may be a liberalism classique. This is a liberalisme classique, and there may be also some social liberalisme. Ça veut dire, c'est-à-dire, some sectors can be held under private, but most of the things should be kept under government, I mean state ownership, like banks and transportation and all this. That's the social liberalism. They will let ils laisseront la laisse pour certaines choses et pas d'autres. And this conservatism, they will be more giving importance for tradition, l'ordre établi, l'autorité, and they will be very cautious about the prudence face au changement des valeurs, and they want to preserve their valeurs, their culture. For them, anything cannot go beyond that, because for them, the culture, language, a border, nation are more important than other things. That's why we call them conservateur or conservatisme. There's the ideology called socialism. Of course, you know more about socialism. It is more common in many democracies. They want égalité sociale et économique. Before going for, there should be an égalité. There should be a redistribution of the richness. Propriété collective. There will be and more ownership, state ownership. I mean, a few minutes before I asked that the socialism democratic, and if it goes beyond a little bit, it may go to communism and socialism libertaire. So they want more and more state ownership rather than and more redistribution, and most of the things should be dealt by the government and not should be given any right to this, any possibility for the private sector to flourish, because they know that it's going to. They think that it's going to go in a different way, and it's going. Everything will be governed by the money, not by the government. I mean, the government will lose its hold on the economy sector. So socialism is nothing bad. Liberalism is nothing bad, but there should be a good équilibre. Sorry, there should be a good équilibre. And one thing I just wanted to say about the socialism, it's nothing wrong to say it out. When I came to France in the 80s, there was the first socialist government, which got formed by Mitterrand. And one thing that I really appreciated, that he said, quand il est en progrès, ce n'est pas un progrès si ce n'est pas été accessible à tous. Voilà. I mean, in a way or other, I'm not just quoting it. If a progress is not accessible for everyone, we cannot call it as a progress. This is the way that he has put it, and this is a way that we can. I mean, in each ideology will have something good, so we have to appreciate that, and then we have to take it with this right in the right way. And then I want to speak about the nationalism. Nationalism is that identity, is the interest. When we call nationalism, there is nation. C'est nation d'abord. The nation, c'est d'abord. Come on, nation first. And they want to have nationalists will have more they want to have that souveraineté, l'unité de la nation. They want the nation should be united, and the nation should come first. And nation should have independent in a way or other. It should be independent. For example, even some of the nationalists in France, they want, even though the European community has been formed, they want to have their own independence. They want to have the nation should remain souverain. Voilà. That's why I put the word souveraineté et la préférence nationale. Ecologisme. Ecologism, of course, we spoke about, I spoke about that environmental sustainability and the protection of the environment, and their préoccupation, ce sera politique, and not only to respect the nature, and then they have got other preoccupations also, like they'll be more, they are peace lovers, of course, they are peace lovers, and they want to give more liberty to gender equality. And nowadays we can also see they are the more defenders of this genders, like LGBT, Q++ and all this stuff. So they are the defenders. They are the more defenders of this liberty, because those people have been suppressed or for centuries. So they are the people who are defending this kind of ideas, these ideas, not kind of these ideas. And I want to speak about anarchism also. It is anarchism is that qui rejette toute forme de gouvernement et d'autorité collective, coercitive, prônant l'auto-organisation et la liberté individuelle. They goes a little bit far beyond. But in France, that anarchism is, there is no party which is governing or represented by anarchism, but there will be an undercurrent of anarchism. And anarchism is, it is also in a way respected and wanted in France, because this anarchism is, it goes a little bit beyond the mainstream ideas, and they try, they cultivate a sort of irreverence. I don't know how to put in English, irreverence towards mainstream ideas, a certain culture, certain ideologies, as well as religion. They've got that irreverence towards all these things, and it is somewhat appreciated in the French culture, because they say it is a garde-fou to go beyond certain level. And these are the people who can, criticize anything and everything, and they've got more liberty. Perhaps nowadays there is Charlie Hebdo, and so many other things. Now they don't call themselves anarchists, but libertaires. And if you are a lover of songs of Georges Brassens and all this, you can see that irreverence towards the mainstream ideas. And this is something very much appreciated in the French public. That's why even today that Charlie Hebdo and so many other critic reviews are still appreciated and led. And Canard Enchaîné is also get that irreverence towards the mainstream ideas. Of course, the next one is fascism and Nazism. Fascisme et nazisme. They are authoritarian, nationalist, and nationalist. When I say that, they go beyond the certain amount of nationalism, and they want to suppress all the oppositions, and they want to be the sole leaders. And there is no need to give any explanation or example. That's what happened recently in the last century with the Second World War, even in the First World War. And feminism is something that we cannot forget. That is égalité des droits entre les sexes, entre les hommes et les femmes, et analyse les structures des pouvoirs qui perpétuent les inégalités de genre. It is, of course, it is something important, because that inégalité de genre, inégalité between men and women, it has been perpetuated for so many centuries. And only now in this century, from the end of the 20th century, end of the 20th century. Why I'm saying that is because in many countries, even in France, even the women got the right to vote only in the last century, that is after 58, I think, 1958. So this is a long struggle that women, they are doing it, and it has to be considered. We cannot just close our eyes to this. And in this context, I just wanted to give some importance to this, between the difference between the patriotism, nationalism, and fascism, because it's very important. Patriotism is something, sentiment, c'est un sentiment, it is not an ideology, c'est un sentiment plus traditionnel, ancré sur l'amour de la terre, de ses coutumes, souvent associées à la religion. Nationalism is an ideology. It is an ideology. Okay, and that is the difference between the sentiment and the ideology. It is more centered towards the nation, independence nation. The nation should be independent, and cultural identity, patriotism, unity of the nation, and most of the time it integrate religion to it, and at times even language to it. And it wants a national loyauté émotionnelle profonde et irrésistible envers l'État-nation. They want to create an emotional connectivity towards the nation. Most of the ideologies, they want to create an emotional identity. Even it happens in and at times even ideology and ideal, personal idealism. I don't know how to say it. So at times even some stars, some cinema stars are idealized in that way. It is an emotional attachment towards that. It is not nationalism. It is something like that. So this is nationalism. It is connected with the emotional connection with the nation. And fascism, I don't want to go beyond that, because we know, everyone knows that fascism, it is a specific, and it goes beyond nationalism and patriotism. That's the main thing that we have to remember. And what happens during the French Revolution? It is a type of nationalism. La Révolution française a remplacé la loyauté envers le monarque par celle envers la nation. This is the point that I want, before the revolution, the king was everything. Le monarque, c'est l'État, c'est moi. You know about that. I mean, what Louis XIV said, Louis XIV said, l'État, c'est moi. So everything was revolving around it. So the revolution has changed everything. The Révolution française a remplacé la loyauté envers le monarque vers celle envers la nation. That what I said, that the emotional connection towards the nation, and the nationalism has become the mainstream idea that brought the revolution in France, because they wanted to get rid of this, and this liberté, égalité, fraternité, they wanted to create among the French people, and they want to use that as their sole idea to get themselves freed from these monarchs. And there are some, of course, the revolution, before getting into that, the revolution has changed very, short-term changes and long-term changes. The revolution has contribué au déclin de la féodalité. Féodalité, l'absolutisme. When the king is ruling, only those people, there were only, the clergy and the nobles and the clergy and the king. These are the people who was doing the governing, and they got all the power, le droit sur la vie et la mort de ces citoyens. There was no citoyen. They are subjects. Sorry, they are subjects. They were only subjects and not citoyen. So they wanted to that short-term thing. The short-term change is what they became citoyen. They changed from subject to sujet au citoyen. They got that, and after that, the revolution and the feudal society was slowly got changed overnight. Not overnight, of course, it took more than 20, 30 years. Let us see about that. This I wanted to give this importance because when I say nationalism should not take into in any wrong sense, this is la Révolution française a remplacé la loyauté envers un monarque par celle envers la nation. This is what I mean by nationalism. Because why I want to insist that nationalism has got different connotation, especially in France. When they say nationalism, they think that it's something more prone towards the fascism and fascism. No, it is because this nationalism continued to exist till the end of the beginning of the 19th century, but only after the First World War and Second World War, when the nationalists had joined the fascists, the nationalism has started to having a wrong connotation. No, it's a bad connotation, and it is not. Of course, what I want to you know what I mean to say. How everything happened? It doesn't happen overnight. Of course, it happened from right back from the beginning of the 17th century, 18th century till the Revolution. There was a mouvement littéraire et philosophique, which helped the people to go and get empowered slowly towards this idea of getting the liberté et la bonheur. Of course, there are so many written, in the 16th, in the 17th century, as well as in the 18th century, that there were so many thinkers who have come, like Montesquieu, Voltaire, Diderot, and Rousseau. Montesquieu, of course, he was insisting that separation of power and justice. The king should not have the power of justice as well as governance. So you wanted to separate this justice and government should be separated. Montesquieu insists on that. And Voltaire is a very important philosopher who made a very important role in convincing not only the people, not only véhiculer les idées vers les peuples, vers les gens, mais également trying to influence the kings. Even he was going from one king to another. I mean, he was with Louis XV, and then he went to Prussia with the Frederick II, and then he went to London, and he went to Swiss, because all these countries, I mean, of course, England is already a constitutional monarchy, and Switzerland was already a republic. Sorry, it was a republic, and Voltaire was a very much. Of course, he provoked something, and then he will get punished by the king, and he has to exile, and by that he will be going to England, and then there he was able to. He assisted even the enterrement of Isaac Newton, and he found that how the scientists are respected in a country so nearby, but in France they are not respected and they are threatened always, because whenever he wrote something, he get punished. He got imprisoned either by the Louis XIII, and then after that he has to pay some bailing amount, and then he'll come out like this. He was going from one king to another. He went to Frederick II because he wanted that governance that should be how to say that avec les kings éclairés, les rois éclairés. Ça veut dire the kings should be of course he was not against the king, but Rousseau and Diderot were very much against against such ideas. But he wanted that despot, even if it's a despot, it should be a despot éclairé. So he was also a defender of justice. We should say that Voltaire, even he took it very personal when there was something we can say about this the Procès de Calas. Just to say a side story, Calas was a more rich merchant. He's a Protestant, and his son wanted to become Catholic. And one day they found his son got strangled or hung, I don't know, it was not that clear. And they thought that his father has killed his son because he wanted to change religion. And it has become a very big process, and they imprisoned Calas, and they tortured him. At that time, even though Inquisition period was over, but the torture by the clergies continued. And he went again, and he wrote a book called, I forgot, and then he got imprisoned again, so he has to go again to Switzerland, this kind of thing. So Voltaire was a very interesting, if somebody can do a research on Voltaire, it's going to be very important subject, and even to share with others. Of course, Diderot was the one who wrote that encyclopedia, and it was also has to get the assistance or the support of the king. Of course, he's a very vehement opponent, but Madame Pompadour, you try to put him bring him into the palace, and then he got the support of the king to publish his encyclopedia. And Rousseau has got more modern ideas. This is how this revolution with that moment philosophique. I want to go a little bit faster. Sorry, and of course, the Révolution Américaine in 1776. It was a major event to inspire the French Revolution to get rid of the kings. Of course, you know that no taxation without a representation by the English. Before it was, the 11 or colonies, the English colonies in America, in US, and the East Coast, they started this no taxation without representation, and then they got that independence. And that Boston Tea Party and all this stuff, you would have learned all this thing in school. And les principes fondamentaux de l'autonomie et des droits individuels qui ont servi de base sur son système démocratique. This is how they wanted to have their fundamental liberty from these kings, these monarchs. And this Révolution française is also helped to propagate this idea of liberté, égalité, fraternité in other countries, like in Europe, other countries in Europe. So slowly this idea got, by influencing the government or the kings in place. In most of these places, in most of the European countries, there were kings, they're ruled by the kings. And so it started questioning their power. And also there is a peur de reaction, chain reaction, that if they, of course, what happened in during the revolution, there are so many people got killed, guillotined. So they didn't want to, the other countries, they didn't want to have any chain reaction, and they started creating more reforms. Les monarchies et les élites européennes craignent la ferveur révolutionnaire et le potentiel de soulèvement similaire. Similar revolutions in their country. So cela a produit à la fois la répression et, dans certains cas, une poussée des réformes prudentes pour prévenir la révolution. They don't want to have the revolution in their country, so they just wanted to create more and more reforms to give more liberty, and by the way, becoming monarchie constitutionnelle in most of them. And in the long-term influences that the revolution brought into, especially in France and in other countries and in the world, there was the abolition of the slavery. Right from the First Republic, that is just after the French Revolution, the First Republic, they adopted this resolution, but they couldn't impose this because there were so many landlords who wanted to have slaves. And somehow it got influenced Napoleon and he re-established the slavery in 1882. But finally it got abolished by the Second Republic. But it continued a long back. In the terms of law, it has got abolished, but of course, it is another subject. But anyhow, this is one of the main laws that has been brought by the French Revolution. Les penseurs comme Grachu Babeuf. This is some sideline story. This Grachu Babeuf is also a revolutionary. He was with Robespierre, but later years he went against Robespierre and he got guillotined himself. But he had different ideas. He wanted to have the distribution égale des richesses. It is like he wanted to have that communist ideas right long back in that period, and he wrote a book on that. Wrote a book or some article, Distribution égale des richesses. And ces idées ont profondément influencé les théories socialistes et marxistes in the 19th century. It's a sideline story, just I cannot go because I'm running out of time. Well, if you take the timeline, this is the moment fondateur de la Révolution française. The revolution broke il y a 1789, and it went up to almost 20 years. And the première constitution, le premier temps de la Révolution, and when there was the Louis XVI, of course, they claimed for monarchy, what they say, constitutional monarchy, and they started having their own parliament, and those who supported this, the king wanted to remain in the right, and les Girondins, they wanted to have the monarchy constitutional. They claimed and they are advocated for this monarchy constitutional. Of course, the monarchy constitutional was a little bit accepted by Louis XVI, but some other accusations came later to make them to judge them for the guillotine. Of course, les Girondins basculent à droite after Louis XVI. Les Girondins, who was in the left, they become the rightist party, and the gauche siège, that is the Republican, the Jacobins, who supported with Danton, Robespierre, and all this big mob. Marat got killed before, I think, and they become the leftist party at that time. Leftist party, I cannot say. I mean, those who supported the constitutional monarchy and those who are against, they wanted to have more liberty. Liberté, égalité, fraternité, that was their slogan, and they want to attain it by all means. And when Robespierre got killed, les Jacobins tentent de reprendre le pouvoir au directoire. Let us see the timeline. Revolution, première constitution in 91. 92, they occupy the Tuileries, and they find some elements to accuse Louis XVI, and they Proclamation de la République, and Louis XVI got executed. It goes very fast, and then the terror era begins with what they call Robespierre et les Montagnards, because the Jacobins has already become, les Girondins is, becoming more prone. They want to have more go in a lighter way, but les Montagnards, they wanted to go in a rough way, and the Directoire was ruling France till around 1779, when there was a coup d'etat. There was by Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon Bonaparte, when he comes, he goes very fast. He wants to. His idea is not to gain only. France. His idea was Europe. He first starts his campaign with Russia. He gets a victory. Then he go to Prussia, Germany, and then he got a victory. He goes to Portugal. He got a victory. So he attacked Europe in both ends, and then he's trying to come inside one by one, getting the support of all these nations who he has won. Then Peninsular War in Spain, then Austria. You see the strategy, he's going like this. And then French invasion invasion in Russia in 1812. And then Sixth Coalition, the Battle of Leipzig in Germany. And finally, it is how it's going to end. 100 days on the Battle of Waterloo. It was the end of Napoleon. And again, let us see this timeline. Résumé, l'impact de la Révolution française a été complexe et multiforme, suscitant à la fois résistance et réforme à travers l'Europe. There was a monarchy absolue, Révolution française, First Republic, and then First Empire, Napoleon Bonaparte, and the fall of Napoleon. And then again, the Restoration, that is, kings come again, that is Louis XVIII. And it is not as, it's more than 8 years or 7 years. It is, and then there was a small Louis Charles X. Again, there is a small revolution, monarchy, the Republic by Louis Philippe. Then again, there is small revolution. Then the Second Republic has been formed. Coup d'etat. And the Napoleon, it's a fair election was done by Napoleon III. He comes to power, and even Victor Hugo was elected as the cultural minister or something like that. But again, he does a coup. He becomes the emperor. C'est ce qu'on appelle la Second Empire. It goes from 1848 to 1817. And finally, with the Waterloo and all the stuff, again comes the Republic, the Third Republic. Okay? So this is the election here in 1848, there was a second, they started the general elections right during the Second Republic. Okay, 1848. They led the municipal elections and the canton, and there was the country was divided into canton, in region, and everything. And even they had that election presidential in the Second Republic. But somehow Napoleon III, il a basculé tout, il revient. And then finally, with the end of the Syrian War, that is a Prussian War, again, he lost everything. And Napoleon, that was the end of the Napoleon III. And the Third Republic comes into power. And this is the Third Republic, is a regime dualist, republican and monarchy modérée. There was kings they accepted the old kings, and the monarchy modérée. Again, I just wanted to insist on this thing, on this timeline. Why monarchy has got overthrown and then it is coming again? Why it is coming again and again during this revolution? Because Louis XVI, Robespierre et Napoléon, certes, la République a remplacé la monarchie. Why? Because people, they love when there is a lot of chaos, and people want a strong man who come into power to solve all their problems. It was Napoleon I who came like that. and he knew how to manage this government and this how to make use of this chaos. Of course, he did so many reforms. He did a lot of reforms, any constitutional government he had done, and even today, some of his laws are still followed. So, how to say that the strong man, like Napoléon, a domestiqué les Français comme Louis XIV, a transformé les nobles frondeurs en courtisans. Sorry, it is a little bit funny, but il avait achevé l'œuvre de Louis XVI, les Rois Soleil. This is I taken from one book that I have read, not a book, it was an article that I read that Mr. Jagger shared in one of our in our WhatsApp group, Napoleon Ier, and how he dealt all these things. So it is Patrice, just quoting him, faisant la France un pays condamné à toujours se retourner vers l'État, en lui fermant la voie d'une évolution vers une liberté imitée du parlementaire anglais. But in England, there was the liberty of speech and liberty of the king has no power, the government has power, limited powers, but there is a big liberty for the people. That kind of government, of course, this is his view. He said that Napoleon has stopped or blocked France to make people turn towards État, because he has brought so many reforms and the État is all powerful. En période d'incertitude, les individus recherchent souvent un leader qui projette une image de force, détermination et de confiance inaltérable, inébranlable. Ils recherchent un charismatic leadership qui promet de faire avancer les choses. I put some notes in the notes, but I want to continue. I think this explanation is sufficient. When there is a chaos, some great leader, charismatic leader, comes and tries to solve everything. And wow, this is the Fourth Republic. This is how, when at the end of the First World War and the Second World War, you should not forget. After the Third Republic, there is a long way, and it went through the First Republic, the First World War, and the Second World War, and the emergence of the communist revolution in 1917, 1918, and all this happened. So this is the outcome of when there was in 1945, after the Second World War, when the election came, when the election was led by Charles de Gaulle, this was the situation in France. That is, the leftist party is almost schlag, jusque là. This is, of course, this is communism, socialist, and some leftists left with the ideologies of parties with a leftist ideology. Of course, there is a rightist and radical, and then this move more Republican, démocratiste and Republican. Malgré la grave crise qu'avait connue la Troisième République au cours des années 1930, elle reste globalement fidèle à la modèle républicaine parlementaire qui s'est imposée à partir de 1815. 1815 à 1945, it was a Third Republic, and then de Gaulle, after the Second World War, he made it into the Fifth Republic. And the Second Republic, it had more than 70 years. And it was a quite, despite of problems. Okay. La République française, c'était le gouvernement. At that time, there was no president. There was a gouvernement provisoire de la République française during the war. After that, there was a Second Republic got established. La Cinquième République, depuis 1958, and it is the responsibility is shared by the president and the chef de gouvernement, that is the prime minister, premier ministre, exactly. The chef de l'État, we call him chef de l'État, and both of them are élu. I mean, it was by suffrage universal, that every citizen vote for this body, for the president as well as for the government body. And even today in Europe, there are so many other countries who are following this thing, that the presidential rule: Austria, Bulgaria, Finland, France, Ireland, Iceland, Portugal, Lithuania, Poland, Romania, Slovenia, Serbia, Montenegro, Ukraine, and all these places, they got this presidential rule. Of course, also in African countries as well as Asian countries. And what about today? Whether they are still kings and queens are remaining? Of course, in Europe, kings and they didn't got elected, luckily. And in Spain, Belgium, Netherlands, Sweden, United Kingdom, Denmark, Luxembourg, Norway, Monaco, Andorra, and Liechtenstein, these places, they have still kings and queens. They have certain limited amount of power, like when the parliament get voted, a law got voted, and they have to put their signature, and then one before the law get enforced. But in Vatican, it's an elected king, it's a pope. La démocratie, of course, this is how, and at last the democracy has landed up fully and finally in France and many other countries in Europe and in the world. And democracy is not an easy way to govern, because there are so many ideologies, so many currents, and we cannot. It's highly difficult to come to one decision, unanime, sur les questions essentielles. Even if it is an essential question, a democracy is struggling to come to one decision, unique decision. Of course, we come to unique decision only when there is a national threat. But when even if it is necessary for the population, necessary for the education, necessary for the health issues, environmental issues, there is so many ideas. This is the weakness of the democracy. I don't know whether it's the strength and the weakness is the democracy. There are so many diversity in opinions. La démocratie prospère grâce à la liberté libre expression de divers points de vue, et naturellement à des désaccords sur les valeurs, les priorités et les politiques. And this individual rights plays a big role. Les gens ont le droit d'avoir leurs convictions divergentes et poursuivre leurs propres intérêts. They don't care about other things because they have got their own agenda, the ideas, not only the people, but certain political parties, même s'ils ont son conflit avec des opinions avec la majorité. Democracy offers and ensures this pluralism politique. There may be multiple parties, interests and factions, chacun ayant son propre programme et sa propre vision du pays. But luckily, the democracy has got some tools to come to a conclusion, because they got tools like the upper chamber, house, lower chamber, upper chamber, and there may be some justice. They have to Conseil constitutionnel that has got validated. Like in India, they've got some special bench of judges. Depends upon the ideas, depends upon the project. So there are so many steps to in a normal democracy. So there is a possibility, there are tools to come to a compromise. SSP, you see that of course, that there is a possibility to debate. There is rules of the majority and the law of état de droit, and these are the settings, these are the tools that we have already set in a democracy. Bien que les démocraties puissent rencontrer des difficultés à parvenir à un consensus complet, elles permettent des mécanismes, c'est ce que je dis, the tools, the mécanismes pacifiques to come to a conclusion pacifically and with the legitimacy pour gérer les désaccords, les empêchant de dégénérer en violence ou en instabilité. It may end up the government, the state, the country may move into an unstable situation, but we have got all these tools, necessary tools to see this thing. That's what happened. This is in 1924. In 2024, this is how the ideology and this is the strength and weaknesses of the democracy. You see here, this is where we stand in France right now in 2025. What to say? This is la France Insoumise, the rebellious party. There is the normal communist, environmental green party, socialist, and the new party led by our president and the supporters, some other parties, and the rightist has been limited only 47 and 16, which is more towards the nationalist party. I said that nationalism, it is not well accepted, I would say. They still have some things, because during the Second World War, when especially when Germans occupied France, France got divided. One part with Maréchal Pétain, and one part of the France with Charles de Gaulle and the international allies like Germany, US, England, and Canada, and all those places, till that they got liberated. France got liberated. At that period, they played a nasty role. That's why the nationalists, when they say nationalist party, they have got not a very good reputation in France. But somehow the nationalism, this kind of Rassemblement National, is getting more and more votes. And this time they got 126 seats in the parliament. Actually, they are the majority, not the majority. They got 126 seats, but no one got the majority. That's how, democratically speaking, these two parties who got these two parties who got the majority of the seats should go to, or at least taking into three major number of seats they won. They should have formed a government, but somehow the president didn't give the way the rebellious party to come to the government, nor to this socialist, nor to this, and they wanted to create only with the minority parties. Now we have only a minority government with the support of too many minorities. I don't know whether of course, with the French Revolution, we had liberty. Because of the liberty, there are so many parties. Égalité, I don't know. Everyone got the égalité dans la minorité. We have that. We have won that. Everyone is minority. Liberté, égalité, and minorité. Now that is the situation right now. Les idéologies politiques gives a terreau fertile pour les slogans et des promesses difficiles, voire impossibles à tenir. This is how when in a democracy, when the ideology, using their ideology, they create slogans and they give too many promises, So people, they go to one or another, they choose their parties, because we cannot go, I mean, now the ideologies are well settled in a democratic society, so we cannot go beyond, we have to go with that. And so each party is trying to sell their ideology through easy promises and slogans. This is my vision. And they give even promises that they cannot put into enforce, or they cannot réaliser, de réaliser their promise. And there is face à la réalité. When they come to the power, only at the time, les politiciens peuvent faire des promesses basées sur cette vision idéale, sans prendre en compte les contraintes politiques et les contraintes pratiques, économiques et sociales de la réalité. That we have to be sure. We have to, as the citizens, we have to be very clear that whether they are giving this kind of promises, whether they have got the means to make these promises into to a reality. This is a quite the question that we all citizens we have to ask before going for vote, because they make it very simplicity. They very simplistic solutions. They say we can do this kind of things, because we cannot say also that the politicians, because we need politicians to do this job. Of course, they have got, nowadays that the period, the period of governance is being reduced to 4 years or 5 years. No more 7 years. Before we had the president had 7 years tenure, but now they have got only a period of 5 years. So this is a pression. There is a fourth pression to séduire les électeurs, because they have to give all kind of promises to séduire les électeurs, and they don't have enough means at times. When they come to the power, they know, perhaps they know already, but only when they come to the power, they say that they got the contrainte budgétaire, and there is other parties, they will not allow them to pass that law, or the international context has been, les changements dans le contexte international has suddenly got changed. Even there may be wars, there may be pandemic, and so many other things that can change. The international context may change everything, and they don't have the means to put their ideas or their promises. Le monde évolue constamment. Une idéologie qui semble parfaitement adaptée à un certain moment peut se heurter à des nouvelles réalités, crise économique, défis environnementaux, progrès technologique. When there was this kind of, when there is quand il y a trop de promesses non tenues, what's happened? When the politicians, they give too many promises, when they come to the power, they are not able to do what they promised. So naturally, there will be a désenchantement. People will get not interested in the politics. Les citoyens peuvent perdre confiance dans la politique et les politiciens. This is how it ends. So many youngsters, they don't even go for voting because they have got other priorities and positions. They lost interest, or they lost confidence. They lost confidence in the politicians, and they don't believe that politics is a humbug. Once they come to power, they do whatever they want. They don't respect our ideas, for what purpose we have voted for them. And it may end up in the past de la participation. Une recherche de solutions en dehors des cadres politiques traditionnels. They may go even, this is how the mafia and other things they proliferate. And it also helps to monter the populisme. Populisme, with this thin ideology, I don't know how to translate it, ideology mince, thin ideologies, very radical solution, very simplistic solution. We can do that, and oh, this is a way that, okay, we can put all the strangers out of the nation, and then by that we are going to create a prosperous nation. These are the things, create one people against another, or some ideas against another idea, suppress opposition or something. These are the things, very quick solution. They want to create a sentimental, emotional attachment to certain ideas, certain ideology, to make people, to convince people. And this kind of things happens in the rightist as well as in the leftist tendencies, parties. When it comes to populisme de droite, we can say souvent lié au nationalisme et anti-immigration. Again, when I say nationalism, it is in the context of Europe and in France, okay? And populisme de gauche, l'anti-austérité et la redistribution des richesses. They think that just by reducing the tax, reducing and redistributing the money, just they make this kind of promises to come to power. So it is something. It is not only in the populisme de droite, il y a également le populisme de gauche. So what I can say, there are so many things. When we take the ideology into account, this is how it goes. But what I suggest is just pragmatism. Neither go for this thin ideology or any ideologies. Of course, there are good ideologies, good ideals, good things in both, in whatever maybe the liberalism may be good in certain things, nationalism may be good in certain things, socialism may be good in so many ways, and even communism can be so many good in certain things. So environmental sustainability, everything has got good ideas, but we citizens, we have to be quite pragmatic. I mean, so it is not an ideology, it is just a philosophy. So I say that it's just a philosophy, it is not an ideology. There is no pragmatic party or anything. So it's up to us to be pragmatic in our ideas. How pragmatism can be defined? If one idea functions, then it is a good idea. If it is okay, that will bring out good results, si une idée fonctionne, si elle résout des problèmes et conduit à des résultats souhaitables, alors elle est considérée comme valide. This is how pragmatic people, they say. L'action et l'expérience. Okay, it is not that no one has done that, that idea. It is better to experience it and then see whether it is good or bad. And then you make your decision whether to take or not to take. L'action et l'expérience sont privilégiées par rapport aux principes et aux doctrines abstraites. Les pragmatistes croient que la connaissance évolue à travers nos interactions avec le monde. It is not that nothing is static. The world changes, the economy changes, countries changes, people change. So there is everything. So you have to take into account these changes to evaluate, according to the situation and the context. And it may end up in rejet de dogmatisme. When the pragmatism may, this is something rejet de dogmatisme, and it may go beyond a limit and rejet des principes, ideology fixe is dogmatic. So going one by one, seeing things, whether it works, whether it is good or bad, whether we can experience certain things. So they give the pragmatism, it is giving accent, ce qui marche, what it works, l'accent sur les solutions pratiques et la réalisation des objectifs souhaités. If you want one result, you have to you have to give the means to attain that result. This is more like in any computer program. You fix the result and then you go about how to do how to make it. This is an objectif souhaité. You fix the result, this is the good result. Okay, it can be attained through these means. Accent sur ce qui marche, l'accent sur les solutions pratiques et la réalisation des objectifs souhaités, afin de faire ce qui est efficace. Okay, we come to the end. L'idéologie, I mean, it's essential for the politicians. I mean, we have to be cared. We have to be aware of what's happening and how things move, whether it is good or bad, whether to follow, whether this politician or is a leader is the right person, whether he is taking to the right path, or we are going to end up in an ugly way. And also this is from the citizens' part, and it is essential for the politicians to be realistic and transparent and accountable. Il est essentiel que les politiciens fassent preuve de leur réalisme et de transparence dans leurs engagements. Et nous, les citoyens, à développer une vigilance critique face aux promesses trop belles pour être vraies. Voilà. Pensez-vous, do you think that we can reconcile this kind of idealism, and to make it really avec le réalisme nécessaire à l'action politique? This is a question that I end up. The world is in a continuous movement. It is up to us to, mais c'est en constante évolution. C'est à nous à façonner par nos actions. Voilà. This is just an image that I asked for AI, giving this sentence. J'ai donné ça à IA, cette phrase-là. Il a donné plusieurs variétés de réponses, plusieurs variétés d'images, but I took this very simple image. That is up to us to mold the society by our participation and being aware of what's happening. Voilà. Merci. Mr. Jager, I think I've finished.
Merci, merci beaucoup, monsieur. Okay. Mesdames, messieurs et chers participants, nous voilà à la fin de ce webinaire passionnant consacré à la Révolution française et à la suite, un aperçu des courants politiques. Permettez-moi de vous adresser nos plus sincères remerciements pour votre présence, pour votre attention. Merci tout d'abord à notre intervenant, Monsieur Alexis, dont l'expertise et la passion a éclairé les multiples facettes de la Révolution française et ses répercussions sur les courants politiques qui ont façonné l'histoire de France. Aux analyses, aux perspectives, aux échanges ont permis à chacun d'entre nous de mieux comprendre la complexité, mais aussi l'actualité de ces enjeux. Merci beaucoup, monsieur.
Merci beaucoup.
Je remercie également Dr. Ranjit et ses collègues et Madame Souda pour organiser ce webinaire utile et intéressant. Et merci à Keba pour votre aide aussi. Et un immense merci également à tous les chers participants pour votre participation, votre attention. Merci et bonne journée. Et à très bientôt pour des webinaires intéressants à venir. Au revoir.
Merci beaucoup.